Hello and welcome. Today will be a continuation of the Ember tutorial. We will be going over the added libraries that will be used in the template and the future projects that will go from the template. We will go into depth on Tailwindcss and Watchman. Tailwind is a CSS library and Watchman is a tool that helps Ember reload the server when a file is changed. All of the libraries shown today will have their GitHub links in the description. In the next tutorial, I'll be making example web pages using these libraries to show what they can do. With that said, let's get started. All of these libraries will be located in the package.json file at the root of the directory. When installing libraries, you can either place the lines that I'll be showing in this file and run yarn install, which will install those libraries along with their dependencies, or you can run ember install with the library that you want in the command prompt, and it will put those lines for that library in the package.json file for you along with the dependencies. Either way works. In this case, I'll just be showing the completed lines in the package.json file, and I also have already run yarn install for this project. The first library that we will be going over is Apollo. This library is used to make communication with APIs easier to use within your front end. The main part of this library is Ember Apollo Client. This is where most of the library code is located that we will be using within our routes and controllers. GraphQL and graphql-tag are libraries that are used to make GraphQL files that hold queries that Apollo will send to the API. Apollo Link Context, Apollo Link Error, and Apollo Upload Client are add-on libraries for Apollo. There are a number of these add-on libraries, but these are used to set variables in a context to be used later in other links for link context. Error catching and handling with link error, and upload client is for allowing other types of uploads to the API. We will go more in depth into Apollo in one of the later Ember tutorials. The next library on the list is lodash. It is a simple JavaScript library that allows for easy manipulation of strings, arrays, lists, and other objects within JavaScript. It is quite large though, so be careful when you add it to your routes and controllers where it will be loaded. Ember will warn you with a message when it is starting up that lodash is over 50 kilobytes, and so it will be de-optimized when it will be loaded into the browser by the user. Up next is Ember Power Select. Select tags in HTML are used quite often. With Ember, you have built-ins for input tags and text area tags. These allow you to watch the values with tracked variables, perform manipulations with parts of the object, and so on, such as performing functions when certain events happen. However, there is nothing for select tags that exist within Ember. This library adds that support. You can track which option is selected, you can set which option is selected within code, and you can also have functions when different options are selected. Ember Svg-jar makes it easy to load SVGs into your HTML. It looks into your public folder, so all you need to do is provide a name without.svg, and it will go through that folder, find the SVG, and load it into your web page simply. Ember Tooltips makes a component tooltip that allows you to easily add a customizable tooltip to HTML objects. You can decide how they appear, where they appear, what's in them, and more options like colors of text and color of background. Next on the list is something that I use most often in HTML. Ember Truth Helpers provides Ember with deeper if statement functionality within HTML. It provides checks for equal, and, or, is empty, and more. Last but not least is Tailwind. This library makes it so you do not have to add any style to your HTML objects, which helps with avoiding scripting attacks. Any normal style attribute becomes a class when you use Tailwind. For example, if you want to style a div as an inline block, you would have to create a style attribute and set it to be display::inline-block. Instead, you can just give the div an inline block class. Tailwind also makes it easy to program for responsive styling. Tailwind uses the other post-CSS libraries included in the package.json file, such as ember-cli-postcss, sugar-ss, and postcss-loader. When you add Tailwind to your project, you need to go into app, styles, and your app.css file to add these imports for Tailwind. Next, you need to go into your ember-cli-build.js file and add the following post-CSS options object to your Ember app object. The important part to look at is the require for Tailwind CSS. This line tells Ember where to find your Tailwind config file. You can either have this in the root of your application, or you could place it in a specified folder within your app folder, such as Tailwind, and then have a file in that Tailwind folder called config.js in there. The latter is good if you want to add extra CSS files that the config file will then import in and use. In our case though, we are placing it in the root directory with the name tailwind.config.js. If you look at this file, you can see all the options that you can modify. This file's job is to override Tailwind's default options, so having the file like this will be using all the default values for CSS. You can add to this file later on when you are making specific websites. That way you can customize that website for specific themes such as color, fonts, sizes, etc. With that, Tailwind is set up and ready to use. Lastly is Watchman. When your Ember server is running in development, you want to be able to change a file and have that server see that change, reload the change file, and show the changes in the browser. It does this by default, but it can use some help sometimes. That help is Watchman, which helps watch for files changes for Ember. I already have installed, but I'll run through what it takes to get Watchman set up for you. All these lines of code will be in the description so you can copy and paste. First, you want to get the Watchman repo from GitHub. Next, you want to install some necessary libraries to compile Watchman. There may be a chance that you already have these libraries, but when I installed Watchman I did not, so I had to find and install these. Next, you want to run autogen with sudo. With the configure run, you want to run without Python, without-pcre, and enable-lenient. There are some Python code pieces that may fail, and there are the same with pcre, so we can skip those so it does not fail. By default, if configure gets a warning, it will fail. Running with enable-lenient will have it not fail on warnings. Lastly, run sudo make and sudo make install to get Watchman installed. You will want to set up the .watchman config file. Right now, it only tells Watchman to ignore specific directories. That is fine for us right now. So with that, Watchman is set up and installed. So whenever you change a file while your Ember server is running in development, it will detect that change and it will automatically reload the file and reload the server and the browser then as well. When looking at those directories in that Watchman config file, you notice one of them is temp. Keep this temp directory in mind later on when you're developing. If Ember ever fails or crashes, is forcefully shut down, or is just shut down improperly, then this temp directory will not be deleted, or the files inside will not be deleted. In this case, you will not be able to start an Ember server again or restart it, because it will see files in that temp directory and think a server is already running. If this ever happens, run sudo rm-rf temp / to clear that file and be able to start Ember normally again. With that all said, you now have all the libraries set up and ready to start developing. As mentioned, the next tutorial will go over making some example web pages using these libraries. Hopefully this helps you get set up with Ember. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.